the confirmation that the next season of Overwatch League will be played on Overwatch 2, I thought it would be fun to take a trip down memory lane and review all the metas of the past. This video will cover all the dominant pro metas that I can remember, all the way back to OGN Apex Season 1. It's based on my own opinions and feelings, basically how fun I thought it was to watch. If you want to see more content like this from me, please like and subscribe, and if you disagree with my tier list, feel free to debate me in the comments.
Overtime, and Envious trying to push back. Internet Hulk does go down though, so for now, the payload moving in Afrika Blue's favor.
Yeah, I wish we could have seen what had happened to the rest of Envy during that little chase. They did remove Harry Hook from the fight. Taimu gonna look for a hook right. He's gonna
there's one! Taimu gets one, and there's a whole hog pushing Afrika Blue back again. They want to take this payload out right here, right now, and a very low, nice right click from Taimu right into another one! And Taimu, the hero on this Roadhog right now, and they will hold 1 point for Afrika.
OGN's Apex Season 1 and World Cup 2016. This was the beginning of it all for me. Sure, I watched a couple smaller NA and EU tournaments before, but that was nothing compared to what was coming. A clip of Taimu's Roadhog on Hollywood is still firmly implanted in my mind. This is the triple tank / Beyblade meta. It was a meta that used Reinhardt, Zarya, Roadhog, Lucio, Ana, and Reaper, although sometimes teams would switch the Reaper for a Soldier or a Genji, depending on which team it was and how comfortable the players were on that character. The teams that were the best at this meta were Envious, Rogue, and Kongdu Uncia. This was a fun meta to watch at the time, but it really doesn't withstand the test of time very well. Overwatch was still a very new game at this time, and it's quite clear that the teams do not have a good understanding of the game yet, making it pretty low rewatchability. Still, though, I can't ignore all the nostalgia. Overall, it's a solid B tier for me.
To the finals. Looks like they're going to have to wait though as Butler goes down in this push. Probably going to get stalled out. Oh, a 5-man Earth Shatter though. They're going to give the Nano boost. He gets two. The Eye of the Kaiser. Can they get it the rest of the way though?
It's got a long way to go.
It's a team fight. It's a team wipe.
Yeah, they
got everyone.
Can they get it?
Oh my
Kaiser
gosh, run
might
away.
have had one of the biggest plays in the tournament.
My grandparents told me about the Beatles. My parents told me about Backstreet Boys. I'll tell my kids about Lunatic High. If I could relive one era of Overwatch history, this would certainly be it. Apex Seasons 2 to 4 saw the rise of some of the biggest names in Overwatch. Teams and players began to figure out how the game was actually meant to be played, and right at the front of it was Miro, the father of all Winston players. He taught the world how to play the character in a time when everyone thought that Reinhardt was a must-pick. The meta at this time was referred to as Dive, but as time has gone on, more and more variations of Dive just began to pop up, so I'll refer to this one as Classic Dive. This meta used Winston, D.Va, Tracer, Genji, Lucio, and Ana primarily. However, by Apex Season 3, Zenyatta was replacing Ana, and it was looking like Soldier 76 would replace Genji. Famously, in the Apex Season 4 finals, Runaway, the best Genji dive team, played against GC Busan, the best Soldier dive team, and GC Busan had to switch mid-match to playing a Genji dive in order to keep up with Runaway's pace. That Genji player's name, you might have heard of him before, it's Prophet. He not only managed to match Haxall on the Genji, who was thought of as the best Genji player in the world at that time, but even began to outperform him as the series went on. And that's only one example of many of the great matches that were played during this time period. If you missed out on this era, I highly recommend you go back and watch some of the, at least the finals of every season. Teams that were good at this meta were Lunatic High, Kongdu Panthera, Runaway, GC Busan, and LW Blue. And this is, without a doubt, my favorite meta in Overwatch history. Easy S tier.
As you're about to see with the Impresight and nailed the shots, not many Widowmakers would go for this play.
Now but Pinewood,
And he just absolutely nails it here. Even the machine gun, what a flick.
Are you
Another one,
serious?
beautiful.
This guy's a living highlight reel, man.
Starting in late 2017 with the World Cup, and carrying into the first season of the Overwatch League, Mercy was reworked and made into a complete must-pick. The only real change in heroes for the last meta was that Lucio was replaced for Mercy, and sometimes Genji would be dropped out from Widowmaker. Early in this meta, Mercy was capable of rezzing 4 players in one fight, so this made fights incredibly chaotic and entirely unclear who would win, and getting a pick felt meaningless. After a few months, Mercy was slowly tuned back until she could only res once per fight, and it was no longer instant. While picks still felt unimpactful, the res became punishable. The nature of the competition also changed during this time due to how the Overwatch League was set up. All of the teams were in close proximity together, and coupled with the fact that the season was way longer. The teams practiced way more than they were used to in the past, and the game evolved rapidly. This caused teams that were good before, like Envious, which became Dallas Fuel, and Lunatic High, which became Seoul Dynasty, to fall behind. The teams that were the best at this meta were NYXL, Boston Uprising, London Spitfire, and Philadelphia Fusion. Despite complaints of Mercy's overpowered nature, this meta still allowed for some of the most memorable moments in Overwatch history. Skin made a niche return thanks to Mercy's ability to help pocket them, allowing for Pine's craziness on Widowmaker and McCree. During this time, Boston also got their perfect 10-0 stage off the back of Striker's incredible tracer skills. Overall, I have mixed feelings about this meta. There were definitely some incredibly high highs, but at the same time, some of the games were really boring just because of how prevalent Mercy was. At the time, I certainly didn't like it very much, but as the years gone by, it's kind of grown on me a little bit. In the end, I'll say it averages out to about a B tier.
NDMX Poco, that is probably the Philadelphia Fusion forcing a game 5 here. As the Bird takes out Neptuno, that's huge.
And London, they know it's a big opportunity now. There's no one to resurrect Neptuno because he's the one that's supposed to be doing that. Hot was knocked away. Jesse gets aggressive in the Fusion, realize they're going to try and hold on. Poco gets the double bomb, but will it be enough? It looks like it will. He tries staying on his feet, can't be taken down by murdering. But Prophet, are you kidding me? All on his own, the lone sniper. He finds 2 crucial kills and a Spitfire are on the threshold of taking series.
This meta was the playoffs patch of Overwatch League Season 1. This meta was brought on by the changes to Hanzo that removed his Scatter Arrow and replaced it with Storm Arrows, and also gave him the Leap ability. The most played heroes in this meta were Orisa, D.Va, Roadhog, Widowmaker, Hanzo, and Mercy. The switch to triple tank was brought on because tanks were the only characters capable of surviving one-shots from Hanzo and Widowmaker. This meta was good for DPS-driven teams like London Spitfire and Philadelphia Fusion, while it hurt teams that relied on their Zenyatta and Tracer players like NYXL and Boston Uprising. This meta is actually pretty boring to watch because the flex supports had to play Roadhog and the tank players had very little impact in the game other than Orisa's halt. However, I will say that it was pretty awesome to watch the struggling London Spitfire hit their stride at the exact right moment at the end of the season and crush all the teams that stood in their path. I have almost the exact opposite opinion on this one as the last meta. I liked it at the time, but going back and rewatching these games, they're kind of boring. Overall, I rate this meta B tier.
Shatter, he goes around the corner, not gonna be able to find anything though. Shield is up now, Super's gonna have one of his own in just a moment. Sinatra, Grab's gonna be online, answering Shatter, manages to find Somitsu into the front. The Prince is gonna be coming down for Twilight, but Sinatra still holding onto the Grab. Answering Grab coming through from Vancouver, locks him in the sound barrier. Sound is a huge bomb coming from John. Oh my god, what a kill! He does it again! We saw it from him yesterday to get the victory over the charge. Now he does it to take the win on King's Row.
Let's take our eyes off of Owl for a moment and take a quick trip down to Open Division. In May of 2018, a plucky bunch of kids just won Open Division Season 2, and then 2 days later, won the Beat Invitational, playing a most unusual team comp. Inspired by the triple tank days of old, this lineup used Reinhardt, D.Va, Zarya, Lucio, Moira, and the newly added Brigitte. This team was called GOATS, the namesake of the meta that went on to define Overwatch for the next year. This meta was characterized entirely by its durability. By stacking multiple tanking and supporting abilities, it became almost impossible to do any meaningful damage. Obviously, viewers who tuned in because they wanted to watch their favorite DPS players pop off on Genji and Widowmaker were sorely disappointed. By that time, Owl Season 2 rolled back around. The pros realized that the additional damage from a Zenyatta over a Moira was a big increase in the lethality of this team comp. The teams that were the best at this meta were the San Francisco Shock, Vancouver Titans, and New York Excelsior. This meta divided the community opinion more than any other. It had really high peaks, such as the Stage 1 and 2 title matches between San Francisco Shock and Vancouver Titans, but it also had really poor lows in the regular season, where it was almost torturous to watch bad teams play against each other. A few teams, like the Chengdu Hunters, tried countering the meta with multi-DPS team comps, but in the end it took several nerfs before the Shanghai Dragons could dethrone the Kings of Goats in Stage 3. One thing that made it slightly more bearable was the birth of the Owl companion streams. At the start of the year, an analyst on the desk named Sideshow was unable to secure his visa for the start of the season and did watch-along live streams on his personal Twitch channel instead. By the time he got his visa and moved to the US, a frequent guest of these streams, former pro player Avast, carried the torch and kept me watching through some particularly boring matches with his quick wit and banter. Because of the wild variation in match quality, I will average it out to a B tier.
It's a good combo! No,
No,
just dead?
Hey man, so
Bumper-
take it, boy!
No, Bumper just turbo fed. Bumper just turbo
you crazy fucking idiot!
Bumper actually just engaged the feed drive to warp speed and charge for no reason.
Holy shit!
He just engaged the feed drive warps.
With the 2-2-2 lock permanently killing goats, we all thought we could rest easy and return to the fun DPS-driven metas of the past. Oh, how we were wrong. Sigma was so overtuned on his release that I shudder to think of what would have happened if he was available during goats. With his 1600 HP barrier and Orisa's 900 HP shield, double shield comps became the norm. This meta used Orisa, Sigma, Doomfist, Reaper, Moira, and Lucio. The teams that were the best of this meta were still the San Francisco Shock, Vancouver Titans, and NYXL, but San Francisco Shock had created a huge gap between themselves and the second and third place teams, beating NYXL and Titans back-to-back 4-0 in the playoffs. As OWL ended and World Cup 19 started, the meta shifted slightly to using Mei and Hanzo as DPS and Zenyatta and Baptiste as supports. This version had slightly higher damage from range but lower close range burst damage. This meta was so boring to watch because there were so many shields and Sigma was way too OP. There weren't even really any interesting matches during this time either, because San Francisco Shock rolled through the playoffs and USA stomped pretty much every team they played in the World Cup. This is without a doubt the worst meta in Pro Overwatch history, D tier.
Sparkle wants to try and put an end to it. Blade in hand, it's going right down to the distance as the overtime burns through. The Fusion need to find an opening. Sparkle now moving through, but Xy's on the flank. The headshot onto Carpe. One of their star players taken out early. And Boombox just left to his own devices in the sidelines. He goes down to Fusion. Only a couple of players left remaining. EQO's got to come up huge right now. Everyone is weak. EQO with the blade, pulls it through, builds it up. Will it be enough? 1 kill, 2 kill. Are you kidding me? EQO now finds it with the third. And now it is overtime. Xy moving over to the Tracer to try and deny, but EQO! What a player, what a star! Unbelievable performance in the overtime clutch. And normally it's Carpe, normally he steps up, but this time EQO reminds everybody at home why he's still on this roster.
Fan complaints about stale metas had reached an all-time high. Dive lasted for most of 2017 and 2018, then Goats took over the rest of 2018 and the first half of 2019, then Double Shield dominated for the next 6 months. Worried that we were going to have another 6 months of stale balance changes, OWL implemented a hero pool system that would artificially make new metas by banning certain heroes per week. As you can imagine, there was absolute chaos as the teams tried their best to figure out what was best each week. The teams that were the best at this time were those that were incredibly flexible, like San Francisco Shock and Shanghai Dragons, or teams that got lucky with hero pools and were already good at those metas, like Paris Eternal and Guangzhou Charge. Since there was no dominant meta during this time, I won't place it on the tier list.
Yo, everyone listen to me. Everyone fucking listen to me. I need to set the record straight here. The Ana Zen talk, right? Like, you know, in the Hog mirror, what's better, the Hog or the Ana or the Zen? Ana's better. I'm literally convinced that we objectively played the meta wrong in the finals. I'm just gonna go ahead and say that right now. I'm convinced that Ana was a better pick than Zen. And I see people saying like, oh, but, you know, Zen can Discord the Hog.
Not benched anymore.
Listen. Violet is just a freak.
Fuck you, look
That guy is literally the best Zen in the world, it's not even close. And that's why we were able to run Zen and make it work. That guy's a straight up fucking animal. I thought he was gonna get finals MVP, if you guys want the truth.
With another season of OWL wrapping up, in traditional Overwatch League fashion, a big patch was released that entirely shook up the meta. For the first time in forever, Roadhog made his reappearance. With increased damage, Roadhog was capable of destroying any character in a 1v1. However, due to Roadhog typically being a terrible character in pro metas, some teams were unwilling to believe that Hog was the right character and tried running other team comps. Teams like the Philadelphia Fusion and Shanghai Dragons were proven wrong, while the San Francisco Shock and Seoul Dynasty used the OP character to its full advantage. This meta didn't last for very long, and some of the teams had very different interpretations of who should support the Hog. Washington Justice tried using Zarya, but the Fusion beat them with a rush gun. San Francisco Shock and Dynasty had more success with Ball and Sigma. Also, Dynasty used Creative on Ana, whereas San Francisco Shock used Violet's and Yada. Both teams primarily used Ashe and Tracer on DPS and Mercy and Seal for support. This meta was pretty fun to watch, and the run from Justice was super exciting to follow as well, as they'd been struggling hard and barely even qualified for playoffs. Not to mention this was the closest grand final game in all of Overwatch League history. Objectively, this is a pretty stupid meta, but the games were really fun to watch, so I'm going to put it in A tier.
Quick, surely. There we go, one stick happening and no south bubble there for Hanbin to try and survive it. And number one, Lee, you've got to be kidding me. That is ridiculous.
Coming into this year, I had no idea what to expect. I just finished finals of my first year at university and moved back home when I heard the news. Dallas Fuel signed the old Element Mystic roster. One of the biggest names in Korean contenders history back together again. I had to see this. There was plenty of criticism of this move in the early season, a lack of a star Tracer player and a huge hit-scan shaped hole where Xe retired, and a weird support rotation that no one understood. It was going to be tough for them to prove themselves. This part of the year basically had two different metas, a Brawl meta that had been picking up traction in contenders during the offseason, and a dive-based comp called Double Bubble. Double Bubble used Winston, Zarya, Echo, Tracer, Ana, and Brigitte. The teams that were the best at this were Shanghai Dragons, Dallas Fuel, and Washington Justice. Brawl, on the other hand, used Reinhardt, D.Va, Mei, McCree, Lucio, and Baptiste. The teams that were the best at this comp were the Houston Outlaws, San Francisco Shock, and Seoul Dynasty. That is, until Dallas Fuel made an adaptation to run Sparkle on Symmetra instead of McCree. This change allowed for instant rotations with a teleporter and high close range damage from the beam. With a firm grasp on how to play both sides of the meta, Dallas Fuel were able to defeat every team that stood in their way and proved all the doubters wrong. After a long offseason of Pro Overwatch, this was the perfect way to get me right back into it. I rate Brawl A tier, and I rate Double Bubble S tier.
And Shanghai Dragons, they look unstoppable at the moment. They're not going to be denied this capture still. Hanbin's certainly going to try with the self-destruction goes through! What in the Lord's name was that? Shanghai again with the coalescence. It's going to be the self-destructive response of it, just to try and put off.
Based on the team comp that teams were running to counter Roadhog in last year's playoffs, the Talon dive/rush meta used Winston, D.Va, Reaper, Sombra, Lucio, and Moira. However, Sombra got banned in Stage 2 of Season 4, leading to the use of Echo instead. This created a new problem, however. By using Echo's duplicate on the enemy D.Va player, there was so much tanking ability available that no one on the team could be killed. In addition to that, 1 or 2 D.Va bombs could be thrown during the duplicate, forcing the enemy team to hide for long periods of time. The teams that were the best at this were Atlanta Reign, San Francisco Shock, and Dallas Fuel. At the last possible moment before they were eliminated from the June Jazz tournament, Shanghai Dragons found an adaptation of using Wrecking Ball and won the tournament. Honestly, this team comp is really boring. It gets old watching a million D.Va bombs go off every fight, and nothing is able to be killed in a neutral fight. C tier.
Dragon Strike just eventually just went straight through. Monk took him out, and Birdwing's got into a nice little off-angle position. The Storm Arrows not doing too much, but the Chengdu Hunters, they're winning this one out. Muse has fallen. Birdwing, oh, he's going to be next on the list. There you go, taken out straight away. It's going to be desperation now for the Gladiators.
turning it with his Ant Matrix.
With the Ant Matrix from the back. Jimu's been taken out. I don't believe that. You have got to be kidding me. Shu comes out with the clutch ultimate, and he's no stranger to it. He loves to just pump out his ultimates to try and turn these team fights at a completely different angles when teams aren't expecting it.
When Shanghai proved that Wrecking Ball was the top main tank in the June Joust tournament, many teams disagreed that it was the new meta. At this point, there had been no major balance changes in a long time, just some small tune-ups and tune-downs for under and overperforming heroes. Because of this, there was a very openness in meta that had never been seen before in Overwatch League history. Some teams stuck to their Brawl, Double Bubble, or Double Shield team compositions. In the Countdown Cup, it became clear that the Ball Poke comps were the best meta. This used Ball, Sigma, Mercy, Zenyatta, and a rotation of many DPS based on the map. Pharah, Tracer, Widow, and Sombra, and Ashe all got playtime. Personally, I'm not a big fan of this meta despite what the community thinks, mostly because I don't think Ball is that interesting of a hero to watch, because while he is mechanically intensive to play, strategically it's not as complex as the Winston or Reinhardt based comps. I find those way more interesting. B tier. Wow, a 5-year recap in 20 minutes. This video was super long, so if you're still watching, thank you so much. I couldn't possibly go into detail about every little thing, and I know I left out a lot. So if I missed something that you really wanted to hear about or that you really liked, I'm very sorry about that. Please leave a comment. If you want to watch me live, you can find me on Twitch on twitch.tv/halfreeprince. And last but not least, thank you to everybody who made this video possible, even if they don't know it. Thank you to user 5camps on Reddit for the Pro Meta timeline, which is basically the entire background of this video. Thank you to Liquipedia, the information from there made this video so much easier to make. And finally, thank you to everyone involved with the Overwatch League. From the casters, the desk, the production, content creators, the players, coaches, and GMs, the Overwatch League has always been a blast to follow. I'm looking forward to what you can do in the future, and I'll see you in Overwatch 2.